This is the Mind Mansion podcast. I'm here with Brandon DeGula. Hopefully that's how you pronounce his name. Gula DeGula. He's the man. He's the man from late round quarterback, lateround.com. He is the right-hand man of JJ Zachariason. We're going to have a lot to talk about. This guy knows ball in a very, very deep way. And I think we're aligned on some things, and I think that we also disagree about some players in particular. So we're going to get into that. Players we're fading, players we love, players where the news is fake, players where the news is real. There's a lot coming up on the Mind Mansion program. DeGula.
Gadula, but
it's cool. What? Just Gula?
No, Gadula.
I got it right. So I got it right.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I am the worst. I always assume every time I'm going to get the name wrong. And then so what ends up happening is I'm like, I think I know how to pronounce his name. And then I see the light come on for the show. And I'm like, wait, how do you pronounce his name again? And I'm like, no, don't panic. And then I panic. It happens to me every time. I always panic. And because it's like in the pre-show, am I going to ask you how to pronounce your name? Like that seems so lame. And then I end up, getting up in the air without a net and fucking it up. So now I feel great. I feel great that I got it right for once in my life. This is going to be a great, this is an omen. This is an omen. This is going to be a great show. We're going to talk Luther Burden and Roma Dunze. We're going to talk about just in general, this Bears offense. We're going to talk about the Falcons offense. There are some offenses that we're generally staying away from, and there are some offenses that we absolutely love. And I think there's going to be a couple offenses that we love that most people hate. And I'm excited to get to that as well. But let's just start with the Bears because Ben Johnson comes out. He says he wants to break the record for most points scored. Feels like a setup. I don't love this because I want a Dunze. I want Loveland. I'm in on this offense. So when a coordinator sets himself up to fail like that, I kind of hate it. So I'm like, please don't do that. Like, it's almost like he's been reading too many fantasy articles that are basically attributing the whole offense to him and his genius. That I please don't do that. Just get out of the way and let these incredibly talented players play. How do you see things playing out in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, you come at the king, like the 2013 Broncos, you best not miss, right? Like that's kind of what he's setting himself up for is greatness or not, like greatness or bust. Like when that's your goal, it's kind of all or nothing. But look, I bet golf, I model out golf. Like I'm used to that sort of all or nothing, but no, I mean, they do have some ways to go to get to that level. They were 9th in EPA per play last year. 9th in EPA per drop back, 5th in EPA per rush, 9th in overall offensive success rate. So if you look at their EPA per play last year, it was 0.08. The 2013 Broncos, a little bit higher at 0.21, which is a pretty insurmountable number. So again, they have a ways to go, but they have an offensive line that projects well. They've got talent, especially at pass catcher. The running backs themselves, I think they're still a viable duo. DeAndre Swift, pretty decent explosive rush numbers, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from him based on what he's done in the past at various times. But I think there's like the building blocks here where this really is a top 5 offense. And what I like most is you're getting a coach who says, we know what we're capable of and we're going to go after it. Not, hey, we're going to try to just get out here and we want to win the division, one game at a time. Like when you set your sights high, that's what I love to see. So I'm feeling optimistic here. And I don't think that he's setting himself up necessarily for failure. I think there's a lot to like about the Bears.
I like the aggressive. I like the approach. Please, by all means. It seems a little premature to make that statement. And it's just so hard to be an offensive coordinator that truly moves the needle. It's a very high bar. Like we have some evidence that Sean McVay is calling some plays that other teams won't call, don't call, haven't thought to call. And then the very next year, everyone tries to go back and watch the Rams and figure out what they're doing and do that.
Yeah.
It's one guy, right? And then there's the Shanahan coaching tree. Call it 2 guys out of 32. That we can know for sure that talent agnostic, they're above average coordinators and they're going to get a little bit more out of their players than offensive coordinator X for team Y. Ben Johnson's trying to break into that. He hasn't done it yet. According to Fantasy Gamers, he's already done it, and he's already going to be a Hall of Famer. But I just want to, please let him do it. Let him let Caleb Williams break out fully, and let's just enjoy this. I'm in on Caleb Williams for sure. It's funny, like, it's not typical that the player I'm most excited about is the quarterback, because in fantasy, you know, I mean, think about your site, right? Late round quarterback. That's how it all started with J.J. Zacharyson, the book, Late Round Quarterback. Why? Because who fucking cares with quarterback? It's fantasy football, right? There's plenty of them out there, and a lot of them score about the same. So don't worry about it. That's the premise.
Yeah.
But with the Bears, I'm very excited about Caleb Williams. It's funny, like all their skill position players get all the buzz, and then you don't hear as much about Caleb Williams. But I'm like, no. Caleb Williams. If there's a record to be broken, it's Caleb Williams breaking all the Bears records. That's on the table. Caleb Williams being the season leader in yards. Very, very much on the table. Very attainable. I'm so here for it. You want to put the bar somewhere else and set yourself up where now all of a sudden you're going to get fired if you just match last year's very good top 10 EPA per play, you know, rather not, but okay. And also like to draft some of these guys once in a while, and it's very hard to draft these Bears in because everyone's in on them. So guys, you can actually get a Dunze, you can actually get Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift. The light came on for him. Pretty exciting to see a guy who was athletic, a big-time playmaker in college, and suffer through a number of seasons where he was just good and he was underperforming his athleticism, and his body language is some of the worst in the league. And that got, I mean, you could argue that was one of the reasons why he left Detroit was body language. But they just didn't, like, Dan Campbell wanted someone who was going to like bare their teeth and get mad. And when you watched Hard Knocks, he was just not here for it. He's like, listen, man, I got my hands in my pockets here and I'm just taking it all in and I'm pretty good. So just give me the football and don't worry about it. Don't try to make me into something I'm not. And if there's one thing I like about Ben Johnson, it's that he's embraced the players. The players are playing. If you can get the most out of DeAndre Swift and Dan Campbell couldn't, that to me, that's pretty good. And he knew Swift from it. He was the coach of, they were together in Detroit. Now they're together in Chicago. So right there, of all the indicators that this guy's an above average coordinator, that's probably the one that I would point to, but no one else would point to that. No one's pointing to his relationship with DeAndre Swift, but I actually think that's that's also a pretty strong indicator that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and they were a better rushing offense than passing offense by EPA per play last year, and like Caleb is, it was kind of, I don't want to say generational, but a clear like number one pick, like one of the better prospects in the last like 10, 15, 20 years. And there's a chance that he becomes something. I don't know if he's going to become 2013 Peyton Manning, which might be what he needs to be to sort of break these records. But there are the pieces there. And that's why, and we saw glimpses. It was one thing last year to kind of project things out and assume things will go a certain way. But to start to see this and have a season of it and see different players like already start to thrive, especially later in the season, I think there's enough to like cling to feel like, yeah, this is kind of the real deal. Maybe this is a real difference making coach.
Yeah. So I had a big argument with Johnny Tuma on the Dynasty Deep Dive show about how much coordinators and coaches matter. I then put a poll up where I asked everybody, hey, how much do they matter? Did you see this poll, by the way, that I posted?
I did not, but I'm interested in the results.
Yeah, we should pull it up. If I can find this thing, I will pull it up. I was just to spoiler alert, I was disappointed. I was disappointed in how high everyone went with the share of credit that goes to coaches for particular performances. So, are you ready for this? I'm gonna share this on the, right up here on the stream.
All right,
I'm gonna put it up there. Here it is. There's me and Johnny Tuma. Look above me and Johnny Tuma.
Jeez.
That's actually perfect. That is a perfect layout right there of Johnny Tuma and I, live and muted with my condescending eyebrow raise as he's trying to hype up every coach that's ever done anything for one season. And then the public comes roaring in, saying more than 30%. I thought that I was balancing. I thought I was balancing the choices by having 0 to 5%. That is 5.3%.
Yeah.
So 5.3% of people know what they're doing and understand football. Then it's like 6 to 15%, 16 to 30%, more than 30%, 41% of my audience. This is my audience. Me. So what do you think if Colin Cowherd were to post this? It would have been like 80%. More than 30%. They would think that more than 30% of the credit for any given touchdown element of offensive production should be credited to the coach, which is such a huge number. It's just stunning to me, but it actually says so much about analysis, because on any given play, when you're watching a broadcast, the more likely analysis or comment is going to be offensive coordinator X drew up a great play, not player X executed at a high level.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe people just took it a little bit more like the output and the impact of coaches in terms of, like, coaching matters in the sense of who's on the field. Like, we can think a player is great. If the coaching staff doesn't put this player on the field, that's when coaching really can impact things. Maybe people took it a little bit that way, which is what I would say. Like, yeah, I mean, it's close to like 100% because we might have our darlings and
it's true,
they don't see the field. So like maybe that's where it was, but I would think,
at one point Ben Johnson could have been like, listen, man, we're running this offense through Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah,
he could have done that.
And if that's the case,
he had the power to do that.
Yeah. And it's like, well, then Colson Loveland, we can love him, not going to get the ball, right?
Yeah, he
like,
does.
Luther
We're going to play Colson Loveland at H-back, and our starter is Cole Kmet. And Colson Loveland's going to have to earn it. And for now, he's going to play some H-back. We're going to play him in our Jonnu Smith role.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the Jonnu Smith of this team. And so certainly the coaches are empowered to destroy a team.
Yeah.
They they have the power to destroy offensive productivity. There's no doubt about that. I guess the question would be, how much do coaches optimize their personnel? And that's with play calling, that's with pace of play. And okay, that's a scale that I'm interested in. But assuming that at least the best players are on the field, if we at least assume that,
yeah,
right, and that they're at least running, like, say, league average motion rate, league average pace of play, at what point are the plays that are being drawn up on the whiteboard? At what point are the practice habits and all the technique that's being taught? That's what I'm talking about. I'm assuming baseline competence, right? That's why we say, oh, well, remember when Matt Patricia tried to be an offensive coordinator? Like, yeah, okay, we're assuming baseline competence. Of course, yes, that's a great way of putting it. Coaches have the power to completely destroy an offense, but let's just assume that they've made it to the top of the food chain and they're not going to do that. Now, how much does it matter? The plays they're calling versus how much talent is out there. And also, once you get to a certain level of an offense, if you've done your job as a coach in all the preparation, in all the development, then you should be eager to hand the keys over to the quarterback. And you're not even involved. Does anyone ever give like the Colts offensive coordinator under Peyton Manning any credit? No, because everyone knew he was just watching. He was just there to be helpful if you need me, Peyton, right? Or it was always this funny meme about the Patriots coaching tree, the Belichick coaching tree being so bad because they never really had to do anything. So to me, it's like, listen, it really is 0 to 5%, and it's closer to 0% the better the team is and the better the quarterback is. And if you're at 5%, if you're mattering at 5%, given like baseline competence, you probably have a rookie quarterback or you probably have a quarterback problem.
Yeah, I did some research for the late round newsletters throughout the off season.
Great newsletter, by the way. I get that newsletter, one of my favorite newsletters.
Thank you. Back in January, I looked at kind of the impact of like a new head coach or new coordinator. Later on in the offseason, I looked at like how sticky certain stats are, and just to kind of like reduce it very simply, teams regress. Like teams will improve when they get a new coach or coordinator in general, but they're probably getting a new coach or coordinator because something was wrong and they were sort of below average, and then things get better. But it doesn't stay better necessarily. It regresses back toward the league average a little bit. So like I was trying to figure out just exactly like how much a new coach or new coordinator can, bring to a team. And it's like, we do see a bit of an improvement, but it's also like when you're 25th in the league in offense, you're probably not like, yeah, you might be 32nd the next year, but like more likely you'd probably be closer to 16th. And it's like, it's kind of what we see in general. There are going to be outliers. Every time I do something like that, you get a question of like, what about when there's a veteran quarterback who has more say so? And it's like, you can't quantify that. Like you can't in a research study over 10 years, like you can't say, well, this quarterback had 90% of the say and the coordinator was just kind of there in name. Like you can't do that. So if you take it all, digest it and like kind of just spit it out, it's like teams in the NFL is sort of about regression to the mean in some form or fashion. And it's only like on the very, very extreme, like tail ends that teams are great year after year and teams are really bad, like year over year. So it's kind of just like shuffling that middle. And that's kind of what we see with coordinators. So I'm with you where like, I don't think it matters to a substantial degree in terms of like optimizing how much you get out of players. It's more about deployment, making good decisions and using the players who are actually talented. That's my take, but that's just kind of where I am with it.
Yeah. And there are certainly bad coaches that slow play their best players to their own detriment.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. It's not that they're overplaying their best players. The biggest problem we have with coaches is that they don't play their best players enough for whatever reason. There's one team that I think could break the brains of the coach worshippers this year. Do you know what team that is?
No,
basically checkmate in like 3 moves for me.
Okay.
Do you know what it is? Can you guess?
I can't. I want to hear where you go with this.
The Jets having an above average offense because they love to wave the Frank Reich sucks flag. And if Frank Reich is just good enough, if he's just competent, like if he can get out of his own way and play Omar Cooper more than it sounds like they want to, and please, by all means, pivot off of this Isaiah Williams nonsense. If they could just play their best players, if they can get Sadiq out there and be creative about their 12 personnel packages, because I also think Mason Taylor is a quality 2-way tight end. They have one of the better talent configurations, especially in the passing game, it's basically everything you would want. If you drew up a fantasy real NFL team, you would want to have a satellite back like Breece Hall. You'd want to have an alpha like a guy that can catch anything everywhere, a Spider-Man alpha like a Garrett Wilson, a field stretcher like Adonai Mitchell, a slot guy like Omar Cooper, a 12 personnel like Sadiq and Taylor. It's exactly what you would want. So to me, this is a great test where if this fails, I can always blame Geno Smith. So I'm in a great position, and the expectations are very low. So if Frank Reich can quote unquote refix Geno Smith and just basically deploy really high quality skill position players in garbage time and put up a bunch of points, I'm going to look like a genius. And it's going to make the coach centric analysts very uncomfortable. Now they're just going to forget it. And they're going to move on and they're going to pivot to the next guy next year. Right. There's going to be a whole new best coach next year. And I really, I'm conflicted about Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson flaming out would really help me too. But I don't want that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Okay, I just want to be on record. I'm not a masochist here, and I'm here for fantasy points. But it would be nice to be right and everybody get to score fantasy points. And the best path for that to happen is for the Jets to ascend.
Yeah, I mean, you have you laid out the case. They have the talent. They just need to get out of their own way. Geno gets a bad rap, I think, in terms of his efficiency at times. When he can carry an offense, why can't they be? And I think there's chance to be better than this, but think of the Cardinals last year, right? They supported fantasy pieces. There's no reason this team can't do that too.
If I were channeling JJ Zacharyson when he's writing the book Late Round Quarterback, I don't even know if we had superflex leagues back then. This was a long time ago. This was like a decade ago. I think superflex was invented back then. I couldn't dream up in fiction a better second quarterback for a superflex team than Geno Smith based on the book that JJ wrote.
Yeah. I think Geno's fun. I've been getting some Geno stacks in best ball on DraftKings. You can pair him with a lot of different players late. Nice. Even if you don't get Breece or Garrett Wilson. People were just way off of Kenyon Sadiq. I think Kenyon Sadiq is a transformational talent. I thought I was going to be contrarian, honestly, when I started looking at his profile. So I helped revamp the tight end model at late round, the Zap model. I dug deep into tight end, looked at a lot of stuff, and I was like, okay, Kenyon Sadiq, he's the clear tight end one this class. I'm like, no, there are some holes in this profile. I'm going to be kind of a little bit contrarian here and say, hey, look, it's not all, sunshine and lollipops with Kenyon Sadiq. Turns out, even though I was a little bit lower than I thought I would be, people just don't like Kenyon Sadiq. And I don't get it to the point that I'm rooting for Kenyon Sadiq to have a great career because people are just no, super young, super athletic tight end, taken top half of the first round in the NFL draft. I don't get it. I'm just I think we're overthinking it because people were no, Eli Stowers is a better prospect. And it just wasn't really the case. Eli Stowers, great production profile, but
yeah, but he's
in
not
conjunction.
No, come on.
In conjunction with everything.
Dynasty guys are right on this. They're dead on this. I mean, Sadiq in all formats goes at least 5 picks ahead of Stowers.
Yeah. Now, around the time of the draft, people were maybe Sadiq isn't even the best tight end in the class. Maybe it's Stowers for fantasy. And it was
okay, you're right. I heard that a little bit. But it's interesting that because no tight ends have been getting any buzz at all, you haven't seen this because I've been in rookie drafts. I took it over all these orphans. I took over 20 orphans in 20 days, and I keep getting all these residual orphans given to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm in all these rookie drafts all the time. And the disparity is actually widening, even though Sadiq is out. See, Sadiq had this setback with the abductor.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, if he were practicing, like, you're in a great position, because if you're getting a bunch of Sadiq, he's out. He's very inexpensive. Like, you're getting him in the Arande Gadsden zone, right? Arande Gadsden, likely, you're probably getting him after those guys, right? He's falling after those guys. So what's not to like? If he can just time it, and this is, by all reports, going to happen, he's going to time it so that he's finally 100% just as the season is starting, and he has all this raw ability, and they're going to want to get him on the field. They invested all this capital in him. So if he were a second or third round pick, if this was Eli Raritan, he's fucked. Like, if you miss all of preseason and you miss a bunch of camp as well, I mean, I don't want, he participated in like a few practices and OTAs, but he's been very, very limited to out throughout the spring and summer. If you're a third rounder, you're buried, you're done. You know, you're stashed on the taxi squad, and we'll see you next year. Yeah. A guy like Sadiq, no, Sadiq could just time it right, get right just as the season is starting, and you had to fight no buzzy headwinds throughout draft season.
So, like, Sadiq, I think, is like, you mentioned the coaching stuff. Frank Reich's used tight ends historically at a high rate. And if you look historically at first round tight ends taken, especially in the top half of the draft in their rookie season, it's a smaller sample over the last 10 years. They've averaged almost a 20% target share as rookies, which for context last year would be about the tight end 10. And like, Sadiq to me is just, he has a path to be the wide receiver 2, because it doesn't seem like they love an actual wide receiver 2 behind Garrett Wilson. And when we talk about 12 personnel, like, he should be on the field as much as he can handle. And to be honest, like, if you look deep at his profile, he had a lot of competition at Oregon at various times, you know, playing behind Terrence Ferguson, who we probably all think now at this rate is going to be pretty good, or a lot of people do. I won't say everybody, but there's a lot to like about Terrence Ferguson, Tez Johnson, Troy Franklin, Bucky Irving. Jahmyr Johnson is going to be, he's expected to be the tight end 1 for this upcoming class. He's, so tight end competition there. And one of the things that I don't think people ever bring up with Sadiq is he played with 3 different quarterbacks in his 3 years. That doesn't help. He can't, I just think that there's so much to like about Sadiq. I think I'm with you where, like, you have to figure out which offenses you're willing to kind of buy in on. And for the most part, outside of Garrett Wilson and Brees, everyone's very affordable in different fantasy drafts, depending on the format. So I like Sadiq a lot. I'm still drafting him in best ball. And if you're getting him, in Dynasty right now, like, you're probably getting a value.
Yeah, you're getting, it's a couple picks usually you're getting a value where you probably should go a couple picks, especially in tight end premium. Should be going a couple picks earlier than I've been seeing him go. You're starting to see him fall. Sometimes people are reaching for like a Denzel Boston over him, and that's just a mistake. That's just a flat out mistake. But there's buzz, right? There's buzz with Boston buzz. Mm-hmm. Not the offense I want exposure to, so no thanks. But there is buzz with Denzel Boston. There's no buzz with any tight ends that I can. Oscar Delp has a little bit of buzz, and it's great because he wasn't productive in college. But a lot of these guys at Georgia, there's so much talent. Like, just like with Oregon, there's so many pass catchers, but also at the same time they have like a carousel at quarterback that makes it difficult to produce. Ladd McConkey wasn't a big time producer at Georgia either. And so now you take a guy like Delp with that talent profile, that level of athleticism, drop him into an offense, and suddenly he's making plays. But he's the only one. I was expecting a little bit from some of these other tight ends. Justin Jolie, Matt Hibner, somebody, but we got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look at Delp too, like you mentioned Ladd McConkey, he played behind Ladd McConkey, he played behind Brock Bowers, and he's got like the athleticism to sort of do more in the NFL than he did in college. And I think if you look, again, I dove deep into tight end this year, and it was a good year for it because of the historic number of tight ends that were not only invited to the combine, but eventually drafted as the NFL shifts to this heavier personnel. But if you look at, like, if you go down the list, it's not that surprising why there's not more buzz. You know, we talked about Sadiq already. We talked about Stowers a little bit, but if you go down the list,
there has been less than zero buzz on Stowers.
Yeah, and it's like, look, if you look at Stowers and say, what happens for him not to have a good rookie season or a great NFL career? And it's like, he doesn't transition well to the tight end position at the NFL level because he's a converted quarterback, a bit smaller frame compared to, like, you know, he's small enough frame in terms of like the blocking and the physicality was always the kind of concern. And it seems like that's what's holding him back. He might be stuck in the middle of like small tight end, big receiver doesn't fully hit. The talent, you know, the data on him when you adjust for everything is phenomenal, but we're getting what we thought was, or what I thought was like the bear case for Stowers, and that's just kind of what's happening. Like you go down the list even more, Nate Borkacher, blocker. Marlon Klein, kind of fun, honestly.
Yeah.
But he's a project. Played behind some good tight ends at Michigan. Max Clare, it's going to take him a while with the Rams. They always slow play their rookies. I think he's like a Mark Andrews light kind of profile. I think he's just going to be a good receiving tight end once he gets going, but it's not going to be immediate. Sam Roush, kind of fun, but he's a blocker with some juice. He's buried on that depth chart. In Chicago. Delp, we talked about, like, has the athleticism, needs a chance. He's going to play indoors with the Saints. That's always fun. Will Kazmarek was next. He's a blocker. Eli Raridan, like behind Hunter Henry, you know, new deal for him. It's like none of the receiving tight ends, Justin Jolie, Tanner Koziel, really got the high end draft capital. It was more the projects or the blockers, which was not what you would want from a fantasy standpoint. So the two that did in Sadiq and Stowers haven't been, you know, lighting it up exactly. So yeah, that just doesn't leave a whole lot. You're not going to get like, hey, Nate Borkacher's like making all these blocks. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So like, if you're taking a chance on one of those Jaguars rookie tight ends, you want it to be Tanner Koziel, but all of the guys with receiving profiles, not all of them, I mean, outside of Sadiq and Stowers, they basically all fell. And that's like a real bummer. Like Jack Endries, I thought could be fun. He's a 7th rounder to the Bengals. But Tanner Koziel, yeah, one of my favorite blurbs that I found was he led 2 different offenses in receptions back-to-back years. That's just kind of fun in the transfer window era of college football. Between Ball State and Houston. So just kind of like fun there, but you know, he's not going to make an impact this year. That whole team is just super deep. So yeah, there's not a lot to get excited about at tight end, even though it was a historic class. It was always a little bit overrated in that sense.
The roster watch reports from Jaguars camp, they love Brenton Strange. They love Brenton Strange.
Not surprising.
Brenton Strange is good. Brenton Strange is a value as much as I want Koziel because he's huge and he has great receiving skills. Like I'm very hopeful. I probably have maximum exposure to him because he's so available in the 4th round. Even in tight end premium leagues, you can get him in the 4th round. Him and Hibner are the guys with nice receiving profiles and athleticism that make it to the 4th round. You can't get Delp in tight end premium rookie drafts. He goes 3rd round. Jolie is like 3-4 turn. So then a lot of times it's like, hey, cause y'all again, got to wait a year or however long. But
yeah,
tight ends, they are exposed to a lot of collisions from the side and also over the middle. They've got safeties bearing down on them as receivers. They've got edge rushers hitting them from all sides. So there's a reason why they get injured more than most positions. So for that reason, whether it's Hibner, whether it's Koziel, all these guys, especially Raridan, get him. Don't worry too much about the depth chart because there's going to be a lot of volatility across the league at tight end. There always is, and the one with the smoothest path seemed to be Jolie. But again, no buzz, nothing. I look every day. I type in Justin Jolie news, nothing.
Yeah, see, like when I first was looking into Jolie, I thought he was gonna like not break the model, but be like one of these standout guys. He was listed at like something like 260 some pounds at NC State, and he weighed in at like, I want to say like 230. It was like 239 or something crazy, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's like, okay, he was a converted receiver. I assumed that meant he put on a lot of muscle, but he actually weighed in a lot lighter than that. So that's probably going to be a bit of a transition because like we're in this weird, era of the NFL where they're using more tight ends. They're using more 12 personnel. And yes, like tight end volume in terms of overall target share is ticking up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that teams are just putting a receiving tight end like a Justin Jolie in the flex. And it's like, technically it's 12 personnel. Like it's a mix. And I will say, like, one of the things that I'm really interested to watch for this year is 12 personnel. And this probably goes back into like what you talked about with Sean McVay. Teams want to do what like has worked in the past. Efficiency, like from an EPA per play standpoint, dropped pretty heavily from 2024 to 2025 from 12 personnel, especially from a passing standpoint. It's like maybe adjustments were made. Maybe more teams are trying to do this 12 personnel and can't do it well. And so you're taking a viable receiver off the field to get another blocker, and it's not actually helping the passing offense. So I'm really interested to see what those efficiency numbers look like as defenses know more and more that the offenses want to put an extra tight end on the field, just to see if it lasts forever. Because like eventually it's the meta right now. Metas change, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But with the Jaguars in particular, I've been kind of saying this, like they drafted 2 tight ends. They have Brenton Strange. That if you take that in a vacuum, you're going to be like, this team wants to play a lot of tight ends. It's like, which of these receivers are you taking off the field constantly? Like, why would you do that? Is that smart? And again, this goes back to the coaching thing. If coaches decide that's what we're doing, then that's bad news for, well, maybe not Parker Washington, who might be out on the field for every snap, according to the reports. Like, that's bad for BTJ. It's bad for Jacoby, bad for Travis Hunter. Is that smart? I would say no, but I'm also not coaching the team. So we can only do so much. I'm just really curious to see how this 12 personnel shakes out across the league and with specific teams who have pass catchers, specifically receivers who should be on the field.
You got to be careful, dude. You better be careful. You came very close. You walked right up to the electric wire. Talking about Liam Cohen. You can't say anything bad about him. He's a genius. He might be. He's a genius. He's a genius. It's for sure. There's no way they're going to regress. There's no way last year was a moment in time. No, he fixed Trevor Lawrence, and he's going to be 12 personnel is the most efficient way to go. And the front office there, clearly they know what they're doing. I mean, they only had the worst draft in the history of the NFL draft, according to just mock draft projected slot versus where players were actually selected. But never mind all that. This is a franchise moving in the right direction. They've got geniuses everywhere making decisions. Let's just enjoy it. Or we can simply decide or pinpoint the one player who is going to be immune from all of this because he's the number one receiver. And that's Parker Washington. And we can just focus our attention there, get very myopic about it, and also Brenton Strange because it's a screaming value and he's going to be on the field all the time. So who do you know is going to be in the field? Brenton Strange, Parker Washington. Those just happen to be the 2 Jaguars I draft the most.
Yeah, I'm on the Parker Washington train. I think Brenton Strange is great. I see the case for BTJ, but to me, he's more of a best ball play because I don't want to sort of deal with the weekly, should I start him or not? I like Jacoby Myers, like long term. Just kind of think he's been a little bit underrated, but not going to go out of my way to draft him. Although some sources have him just as like a complete afterthought by comparison to the other two receivers in terms of ADP. It just depends on where you look, where you're drafting. But I mean, you go back again, just go back to the coaching. We can say whatever we want about coaching. If they're not going to play Travis Hunter as a receiver, doesn't matter what we think of him. That's how coaching matters. I don't think how they deploy him on a given play is going to make him a little bit more efficient or not. And again, it just comes down to who's on the field. And if Brenton Strange is on the field a ton, which I think he should be, that's really appealing.
It is. There's a few teams where both tight ends are quality pass catchers. Thinking of the Saints. So the Saints, you have that with Delp and Juwan Johnson. The Jets, Mason Taylor, you would consider him an adequate receiver, right? Would you consider him a two-way, a proper two-way tight end, like he's a quality receiver, but also a great blocker?
Yeah, I would say so.
Hunter Henry-ish?
I could see it, yeah.
Yeah, Michael Mayer, Hunter Henry. The Raiders, that's the one thing the Raiders have. I just drafted again, Michael Mayer in Dynasty. I just look at the contracts. I'm like, this he wants to go somewhere else. And now where they're taking Nate Borkacher or whoever the hell, I know that I'm going to mispronounce something. If I got your name right,
you got that.
I got Borkacher right too?
Borkacher, yeah. I hear Bo Richter a lot. And I'm like, you at least got to look at the...
What's gotten into me? Degula, Borkacher, I'm on fire. Okay. And we're going to get one wrong soon. Travis Bunter.
There you go.
No. It's just, what a sucker move, drafting Travis Hunter. Good luck with that, everybody. Yeah. Talk about... One of my mantras this year is listen to teams when they tell you what they are and what they want to do. And so if you can, certainly you can run out, right? You can go over the wall, right? And run through no man's land, guns a-blazing with Travis Hunter. And again, best of luck. Best of luck with that one. We'll see. I mean, what's it? So Michael Mayer is probably going to be commanding a huge contract next year. Teams are going to target him. Another player that I'm stashing in these superflex tight end premium dynasty leagues that is available at the end of drafts, startups is a throw in. I think we mentioned his name earlier, Cole Kmet. Someone is going to throw money at Cole Kmet. Some team is going to throw money at Michael Mayer. One day, maybe 3 years from now, some team's going to throw money at Mason Taylor. But so these are just like minor strategy points when you're in a super flex tight end premium in particular. I haven't been in a single tight end premium startup. I'm sure they exist. But the tight end premium format, you have to get creative. You got these deep benches in Dynasty. So I like to go with the young, the Koziol and the Hibners who are a year away at least. And you're hoping things break their way. And then the guys that you know are going to command big contracts when they hit free agency, like a Kmet, like a Mayer, and try to stay away from the mediocrity.
Yeah, there's a lot of mediocrity at tight end. I also think people, to go back to like Kenyon Sadiq, I think people like have a strange perception of what is realistic for tight ends. Because like he was drawing comparisons in the Zap model to like an Evan Ingram, and people were like, "Oh, this guy must suck." It's like, no, Evan Ingram was like a top 10 tight end consistently early on. He just wasn't. He's not Brock Bowers. He's not Travis Kelce. So it seemed like with Sadiq,
he did have at least one Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers level season. Didn't he have did he have a 100 catch season once?
Evan Ingram?
We had one at least monster season. We'll look it up right now. We're going to look up which season he had. It was an absolute monster. Our best comp for Sadiq, did you see what it was?
Noah Fant?
Vernon Davis.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Vernon.
ours that goes
Yeah.
back farther than our Zap model database would. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He also got the Noah Fant comp, and people were like, Noah Fant was never good. It's like he was better than people remember. It's just people kind of expect, if you're not Brock Bowers or Travis Kelce or George Kittle, which George Kittle has his whole own conversation based on his draft capital. People are like, if that's not his comp, like he must not be very good. People just kind of like in the tight end meta, I think people got a little bit out over their skis and like what a projectable outcome for a tight end has been.
I was wrong. Again, apologies. I was wrong. Evan Ingram did not have a 100 catch season. It was 114. 2023. I'm dead wrong. It was 114.
Yeah, he just never scored a lot of touchdowns in a season. Like that was the big thing. Like again, you get those touchdowns, people think of him differently, but it's a good career, and people
What could have
just
been if he were on a better team?
that yeah, and like so you could say the same thing about like, wow, what if Sadiq does that but never scores more than like 4 touchdowns in a year? It's like okay, but
I contend Sadiq's on a good team now. Offense, anyway.
there you go. Yeah,
Offense, anyway. We don't want the defense to be good, right? That's why we're not in on the Houston passing game. You don't want that. You don't want those problems. You don't want coach walking into the office saying we're gonna eat nails again today. We're gonna be crawling over broken glass again today. Or when they go at any press conference, our identity is toughness and running the ball.
yeah.
The last time I checked, Ben Johnson's not talking like that. And then what about the actions? I said, well, that's just coach talk. What the front office does matters. That's when they tell the truth, right? Okay, where's the contract for CJ Stroud? Anyone see the contract for? I haven't seen it. I don't. Did they lock up their keystone edge rusher? Yes. Anderson got the big deal, got the big contract. Drafted the same draft. They traded up to get both these guys, Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, back to back. Will Anderson has the life-changing contract. CJ Stroud showed up this year as a new guy trying to get the contract, and so far, crickets. And so that's just one of those reasons why on a team like that, where it's not one of the NFL's prolific offenses, my general approach is to say, I'm either in on the passing game or the running game based on their identity. It's a very simplistic way. Again, I've become a simpleton. I went from a very complicated, sort of overly complicated sort of Rube Goldberg model for player evaluation just because I didn't know how to harness the power of my own tool. And now I've streamlined it to, well, they want to run the ball, so David Montgomery.
I mean, they're favored a ton this year. They're not in a bunch of, offensive shootouts. It should script well for Montgomery, who is honestly a very capable running back. I know Woody Marks is there. He can take the passing game work, but David Montgomery can catch the ball too. And I just I think of CJ Stroud, and he had the rookie season, hasn't always been there. And there are kind of a lot of mouths to feed when it comes to the passing offense too. It just depends on how you feel about each individual piece. Nico Collins is someone I'm not as high on based on where he goes in drafts compared to teams or receivers on teams with just much better baseline offensive projections. And then you have between 3 and 4 other pass catchers who can eat into that. And with a quarterback who I don't necessarily love. And again, like you said, an identity that's if game scripts go the way that they should go, they should be winning games that are lower scoring. And you just kind of eat the clock, get CJ Stroud his 202 and kind of just go win the game with your defense. That doesn't really move the needle for me with Nico. So Nico Collins is just one of those names that I'm a little bit cool on compared to other players. But I think it goes along in with what you said about just the offensive identity and simplifying things a little bit. So I've been higher on David Montgomery than I would have anticipated going into this season.
Big time. I'll take it a step further. I'm not drafting Nico Collins. Ain't doing it. He's on my do not draft list. I'm not doing it. I don't. There's way too many great choices there, and there's way too much sex appeal. The sex appeal opportunity cost is way too high in that zone of the draft. I'm not sorry that I'm not in on him. I know he's one of those sacred cow guys where he's been good consistently, and those players need to be rewarded because we can then set our watch by them, and they can't let us down until they do. Until they're just a little bit too expensive, and it's so obvious they're too expensive. But man, ADP says I got to draft him. I got to draft him. I don't do that. I said it already. He's certainly he can fall to a place that I'm comfortable drafting him, but he's never going to do that. Same thing is going to happen. Same thing with Trey McBride. My guy, my sacred cow. If your sacred cow is Nico Collins, that you're willing to sidestep, that is sort of blasphemy. I'm the same way with Trey McBride. Last time I checked, they're not favored to win any games by Vegas at all. And now Marvin Harrison Jr. is back. I mean, he's fallen down, he's slipping and falling, he can't catch the ball. Like it's like both his like hands and his feet are slippery. It's very weird. He needs to have like some more grip on the gloves and like longer spikes on the shoes. And maybe we can get him. Just the equipment manager is letting him down. It's not his fault. Oh no, it's not his fault. It's someone else's fault with Marvin Harrison Jr. It's always someone else's fault. And now they're going up against a division somehow that's even more ferocious with Myles Garrett now in Los Angeles. That means staying in the block a little bit more for Trey McBride. There's a chipping away of the target share that I think is going to happen all the way down to Elijah Higgins. The return of Elijah Higgins. And you keep seeing these clips of Marvin Harrison Jr. falling down, but he's not the deepest player. When you watch these clips of Marvin Harrison Jr. dropping passes, there's a player typically deeper than him, and his name is Elijah Higgins. They have him running these seam routes and sideline routes. It's very interesting because this is one of those teams. This is maybe the under the radar team that has two quality pass catchers, where Elijah Higgins was a converted wide receiver. He was good at the 2023 Senior Bowl. He was there. He was good. And I was like, I'm interested in this guy. And now he's back. He's healthy. And you're just going down the roster. It's very straightforward. If it's the Bears and they have Kmet and Loveland, it's very straightforward. Some of these teams, you actually have to just know everyone's going to be running more 12 personnel and 13 personnel and just find the tight ends that are going to be hitting the field. And he's another one of those guys like a Michael Mayer, like a Mason Taylor, where they're not going to break out. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember Greg Olson. He didn't break out originally on his original team. I'm old enough to remember Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett was stuck. He's probably the best example where he was stuck behind Jason Witten. That was never going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But then he goes to the Giants and suddenly, boom, he's a top 5 tight end. And so there's a lot of these types of examples. If I had to go as deep as possible, it would probably be Elijah Higgins. But that's not, I mean, he's not the reason you're drawing. It's more just the situation is so set up to fail for these Cardinals. We haven't even talked about Jeremiah Love. I almost said Jeremiah Smith. That'd have been a shot at Marvin Harrison Jr. An elite Ohio State wide receiver prospect who's actually going to be good in the NFL. Sorry, Marv. But I meant to say Jeremiah Love. I did say Jeremiah Love because I've been correcting myself and getting things right this whole show. Very, very impressed with my pronunciation and just general linguistic capabilities. Probably top of my game right now. Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love's going to be operating in Trey McBride's zip code now. Whereas before it was James Conner, and that just wasn't a factor. James Conner is going to get what's blocked at this point in his career. He's going to catch passes when he is in the flat and the play calls for it. No, Jeremiah Love's going to be running real routes. And they're going to have to coordinate who's going to run the route here now between him and McBride. and McBride staying in to block Myles Garrett. On the ground, what's actually going to happen, not the stats they put up 2 years ago and last year, what's going to happen this year makes me just simply unable, where I've seen it where my finger is hovering over the button and I cannot do it with Trey McBride, dude. Can't do it. That's a lot of capital to spend in a fantasy league on a Cardinal.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been way more receptive in my best ball drafts, which has just been the majority of what I've been doing over the last month or so. I've been way more receptive to Brock Bowers than Trey McBride. I know some people have it probably closer, but like, you want to talk about expectations, the Raiders are way closer to like a 500 team than the Cardinals are. The Cardinals just don't have the keys to breaking through. I think there's a chance that the Raiders are like good or decent. And so to me, when you compare the two, it's Bowers over McBride. And then you go past McBride, there's other interesting names at the position as well. So I'm with you. Like it just comes down to, for me with Nico, for you with McBride, it's like at a certain point, let the offensive expectations help break some ties or like help you make stands. And, everything went right for McBride last year. That's not a guarantee that it's going to go right for him this year.
Many of the reasons that there's predictions of a Mike, I mean, it's the most cliche prediction in all of fantasy right now, the Michael Wilson regression, right? Well, McBride was benefiting from some of those forces too, right?
Yeah.
The up tempo, the volume, that McBride was benefiting as well, but he's not getting the blowback.
Yeah.
He's not getting any negative sentiment. For me, I don't know how bold this is. Tell me if you think this is bold. I have Bowers tier 1, and then I have McBride, Warren, Loveland in tier 2. I have them all tied. Basically, McBride by a little bit, and then Loveland by a little bit after him, and then Warren slightly behind him. But I have them tightly clustered. But when you look at ADPs, there's a much bigger gap.
Yeah, and it depends on like the source you're looking at too with ADP. Sometimes Loveland and Warren are clustered together, but sometimes there's some space. Sometimes, Bowers and McBride are just almost back to back. Sometimes there's some space, but right now, like, I mean, I don't think there's any place, and I don't think it's ever going to happen where ADP says Loveland is being drafted earlier than Trey McBride. Like, this is not going to happen. So at cost, like, I'm taking Loveland over McBride. I'm taking Warren over McBride at cost, just because, like, I think the path for these guys and the offenses, especially in Loveland's case, just better than what we're going to get from Trey McBride. And like, yeah, maybe he just has, 150 target season, gets over 1,000 yards, has like 7 touchdowns. And I just don't know if he's going to be like the game-changing tight end that he was last year again this year, especially if they kind of change quarterbacks. So you don't know when that's going to happen, if it's going to happen. So yeah, I think there's just other concerns with McBride that, as you mentioned, probably aren't being factored in quite to the degree that they maybe should be.
Keep checking our rankings, because I'm not going to make any promises, but as situations on the ground continues to play itself out in Chicago, with Colson Loveland being the beneficiary of target share, don't be surprised if end of August you look at our rankings and our cheat sheets and you see Loveland ahead of McBride. Just be ready. Just be ready, because yes, Adunze will benefit from any games missed or any games where Luther Burden is less than 100%. But I really think it's Loveland. I mean, Loveland leading all tight ends in touchdowns, Loveland leading the Bears in receiving touchdowns. These are all things that are very much in play. And your model loved Loveland. I love Loveland. But I'm not ready to say it yet, just because you don't have to make that decision. The ADPs, there's such a wide, there's no reason to be that crazy.
Yeah.
Outside the ADP sort of a boundary for these players. But if ADP starts to adjust a little bit, especially if Loveland continues to climb and climb and climb, and he will, especially if there's any more negative news that comes out about Luther Burden, that's really the one I'm looking at. So that, yeah, I have Loveland in some dynasty leagues as well, and I just smile every time I see Loveland or Warren. I mean, obviously Bowers, but Bowers, I paid an iron price to get Bowers,
Right. Yeah.
right? But when I see Loveland and Warren, I'm like, that feels so good. I just got Warren again. I took Warren. I'm going to tell you right now. I'll tell you where I took him. I'm in a startup right now. It's almost over, finally. But I drafted Warren in the 3rd round, tight end super premium, and Loveland went probably 5 picks earlier, and I'm like, well, I'll never get him on the way back, and based on projections year in, year out on Player Profiler, this guy is going to crush. Warren is going to absolutely crush. And there's such a gap. There's such a gap to like Tucker Kraft coming off an ACL, living on yak. Get out of here. It's just not even close.
And with Tyler Warren, he'll get creative touches. Like anytime you get a receiver or a tight end who'll get some carries, like some goal line or red zone carries, that has such good inherent value that never really gets brought up with Warren as much as I think it should. But especially with like Daniel Jones now, they're probably going to try to keep him a bit healthier. So maybe Warren does a little bit more in the red zone, this year. I'm not saying he's just going to be like a wildcat quarterback or anything, every time they get into the red zone, but that has a value. And, when you look at McBride by comparison, he was a beneficiary of immense volume, a ton of late, end zone throws that just kind of happened to hit for the first time in his career. I know that was always the thing with McBride is doesn't score touchdowns. It all kind of hit for him. And this makes it sound like I would have
Trey, you know who else doesn't score touchdowns? The Arizona Cardinals, dude. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
God, it's just so damn.
Yeah. And to like, for every situation like this, you can say, well, he did it last year. That's like looking at the outliers and saying that, well, because this happened, it's almost like the Derrick Henry pass catching thing. Like, hey, Derrick Henry doesn't need pass catching, so clearly pass catching is overrated at running back. It's like, no, Derrick Henry is an outlier. Jonathan Taylor, these guys are outliers. We know over the larger sample, receiving metrics, receiving production is super valuable for running backs. So just for anybody saying that this has happened, already, you can't copy and paste that. And I think that there's just such a scenario where the Cardinals are just in this transition phase. You should think they're just hey, we took, Jeremiah Love 3rd. He's going to be our starting running back. That stuff concerns me because I don't know what I can trust from them. And whenever that's the case, I don't love it. Their veteran quarterback was holding out. Now they have a rookie who fell in the draft and might be pushing. It just doesn't seem like the type of environment that I'd want to invest in whenever I could just go elsewhere. That's a
great point. Oh my God. I didn't think of this. Every time Carson Beck completes a pass in preseason, everyone that has members of the Cardinals passing game loses. That's the last thing we want. Yeah. Is Carson Beck back there. The whole case is that at least we're going to get this 1 year of Jacoby Brissett before they make a move to figure out their quarterback. He signed the prove it deal, the classic bridge quarterback deal. And then we have Brissett back. He's the one that fueled the giant volume that we saw. But if they decide because they're 0-7 just to throw Beck out there because why not? That's bad. I don't care how good he looks in preseason. He is a mid-round rookie quarterback who's not very mobile.
And they have a week 14 bye. And that could just mean, hey, this isn't the season. After the bye, we're going to see what Carson Beck has. And like they have a pretty favorable playoff schedule. They get the Jets, the Saints, and the Raiders. But like if it's a team just in let's see what we have for the future, let's see if Carson Beck can do stuff, like then you have Trey McBride who maybe has like a maybe he is the tight end one through that like through week 14, but they're going to switch quarterbacks because, you know, it's just a lost season. It's a risk that you have to kind of consider. And I know like maybe
when's
somebody's
all the
like,
money made in best ball again?
Yeah, week 17. So like maybe people were saying, well, the Raiders are going to go through a quarterback switch too. I mean, a bit
just
different.
when the advancement starts in best ball is when we're likely to see Carson Beck.
Yeah, and I'm not going to like plant my flag and they're absolutely changing quarterbacks there. It just would make a lot of sense that they got Brissett finally there. Just see what happens. Maybe they're a little bit lively early on. They don't want to just hang it up. And then it's like, again, it's just like the perfect sort of give them 4 games at the end of the year, like 3 fantasy relevant games, but then also week 18, which doesn't really matter for us. But it just seems like it could line up that way. And meanwhile, the Bears or the Colts could just be in the thick of the playoff race. You know, Bears, you know, or honestly, like, you know, division crowns like at stake, and they're going to try to just feature Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren. I'm not saying that the Cardinals would move away from Trey McBride, but like it's just something to think about. And whenever you get these elite like draft capital players in terms of what it costs to acquire them, it is worth kind of splitting hairs and thinking a little bit more. For a guy who everything went right for him last year in McBride, there are enough reasons to be concerned this year that it's just like let's see what we get. Maybe Carson Beck doesn't throw to him as much. I don't know. So yeah, I'm with you with this whole kind of offensive situation.
Can you explain this to me? How is this guy who seems to be on Ozempic 233 pounds? Explain this riddle to me. How is he 200? How is he 233? I don't understand it. I just don't. That is a great mystery. The guy needs to eat a sandwich or 3. Now look at these numbers. 12 interceptions, 2 straight seasons on a good team, Georgia and Miami. It's not like he was on a bad team, so he didn't have receivers. He had great receivers. And he struggled immensely in his last year at Georgia and still was turning the ball over. So this is a recipe for just offensive implosion at the end of the year, because of course they want to implode. If you're the general manager, you're happy to have this team lose. With you get to get a look at this guy. Maybe he actually impresses. Maybe it helps you make a decision what you're going to do. Maybe you can trade him if you have a top pick and you're going for Arch Manning. Whatever. Like it's only good news for you because it helps you lock in your top draft pick. So of course you're not going to push back against a coach. In fact, you're going to be pushing the coach to make the move.
Yeah, and
the coach is going to be in a difficult position. You're going to be like, it's either going to be an interim head coach by that time, or what? This is one of the reasons I'm not drafting Jacoby Brissett as a late round quarterback. My late round quarterback, I mean, I'm willing to go with some real fringy guys. We talked about Geno Smith being my guy as the latest of late round quarterbacks. I'm not doing it with Brissett. No.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And like even if they're not the worst team in the league, but they could play themselves out of a top 3 pick by winning too many games down the stretch. Like there are enough quarterbacks in this upcoming class that they're not going to want to win games if they can avoid. I'm not saying they're intentionally going to tank. I would never some teams, right? But
no team ever lost draft picks because the top equity holder was paying the coach to lose games. That never happened. Miami.
So I just think it's interesting. You just take a look at the offensive environment. I think it's simple. I've been trying to simplify my process with fantasy football. And again, when it comes to like these tiebreakers, it's like, sure, why would I want to invest in that whenever I could invest in an offense where the head coach wants to be the 2013 Broncos for like,
Right.
later on in the draft.
Yeah. And it would be great if he accomplishes what he wants to accomplish with this offense, and then maybe they go down in flames in the playoffs and he still gets fired. I mean, there's so many things that could happen, dude. Anyway, I'm so excited for the season to start. I want to see how all these storylines play out. I love that we've spent the vast majority, like 90% of the show on tight ends, because you've done a lot of tight end work. Yeah. I knew this because, again, I subscribed to the Late Round newsletter. So, of course, I knew this. That's why you saw a bunch of tight end questions. 90% tight end. If you look at the show sheet, it's not 90% tight end, but it's just what's interesting, and you're so good at it. But I got to talk about some players. I want to ask some questions about players that are not tight ends, but along the same theme. When I hear Dontavian Wicks is featured in Eagles camp, and I think about players with the skill sets that I want for fantasy football that include explosive plays, pass catching, I'm drafting Saquon Barkley, dude. Every time I see a highlight or some kind of camp hype around a player like a Dontavian Wicks, my first thought is more Barkley. Keep it
just
simple.
because you don't think that they're going to throw it enough if Wicks is the number 2.
I just think that Barkley is going to be such a focal point that we know it's not going to be 2024. That's not happening. Okay. But also, I think it's equally unlikely it's going to be 2025. If it's going to be somewhere in the middle, I'm leaning a little more 2024 because this team has told us we're going to be a running team. We're going to be a running team. We have Tank Bigsby. We're rolling with Tank Bigsby, and we're just letting A.J. Brown go, and we're not even trying to get Kayshon Boutte back. Like, no Booty. That Booty was available. They're good with Dontavian Wicks. This just tells me, man, there's going to be a lot of Goddard and a lot of Barkley.
I like Wicks. I think he's
always like Wicks is great in basketball. Yeah. I'm saying please draft him. In fact, he keeps moving up on our rankings. By all means, draft Wicks. But the point you made earlier is very valid in that we're certainly going to spend some time on sleepers, and we love talking sleepers, but not making mistakes and getting those first 5 picks right is critical. Yeah. And when Barkley's there, especially in the second round, can't.
Yeah, I think
tough to get me off him, man. I just took him in I have in that startup. Remember the startup I talked about where I drafted Tyler Warren? I have a unique situation where in that draft, I drafted both Saquon Barkley and Fernando Mendoza. You don't see these guys drafted in the same team very often in Dynasty because typically one's a rebuilder out there in the open playing for 2027. To me, I have 2 good quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza was a luxury pick. I'm trying to win this year, and with Fernando Mendoza and Barkley, win in 2027. How about that?
Hey, you want to win it every year. But I think you can win it this year with Saquon. Like you said, it's not going to be 2024. I don't think it's going to be as bad as 2025, which was basically just like the worst case outcome for this offense. They want to run more under center. They want to kind of like, I think Jalen Hurts probably gets a bit too much criticism, but also isn't, a game-changing arm talent. I think like with Devontae Smith as your number 1, getting at times we've seen him without A.J. Brown getting 30% of the targets. I think that's a great baseline. Like, hey, we got a guy who can do things as a pass catcher. But then eventually, where else is the volume going to go? Dallas Goedert, not necessarily like a 29%, 27% target share guy, like long term. He's more of the red zone, getting all those
Sure.
flips. Like they were moving away a bit from the brotherly shove a little bit, and the Dallas Goedert just walked his way into a bunch of touchdowns because they got a little creative. If those go to Saquon Barkley, you're looking at someone who still has such a high floor from a production standpoint. And I'm with you. Like I think Tank Bigsby is good. I think like the explosive rush rate numbers and the like the yards after contact, all really interesting. But they're probably
Well,
not
my
going to.
point there was they didn't draft anybody.
Yeah, like they're not going to be like, you know what, Saquon, he's like a 50% snap rate guy. Like this is a timeshare. That's not what you're going to get. So I'm with you. Like sometimes these like vets who aren't as interesting, just sort of like from a name value standpoint, or sorry, from like a kind of like an entertainment standpoint of like these younger guys, like an Ashton Genty, like
Yeah, the
Saquon
sex
Barkley.
appeal.
Yeah, like,
Everyone would agree. Genty at this point has a little more sex appeal.
yeah, but like you look at the underlying data, you look at which team is going to have more red zone trips. Like I think it's pretty clear who it's going to be, especially because the offensive situation for Philadelphia can't be quite as bad as it was last year. So Saquon Barkley, I've probably been a little bit too low on, but again, I keep mentioning all these best ball. I'm just doing a ton of best ball drafts.
No, you're doing great. Yeah.
I keep drafting toward the end of, I mean, again, like pick 11, 12 so much. I've been getting a lot of Saquon Barkley, and I don't really feel bad about it because I do think that it's going to be a bit of a return to form for him this year. And you kind of have a situation where we're buying a little bit low on someone who has been a generational talent and still can be that, I think. So I know people are a little bit out on him in terms of like, he's not Saquon of old.
Okay.
But like we've seen older running backs still have it, like Derrick Henry, right? Like, I mean, so I'm with you with Saquon.
Last time I checked, Saquon Barkley takes immaculate care of his body too.
Yeah, he's definitely a specimen, and I think that Saquon, to me, if I get him at the 1-2 turn or if he falls into the second, like, you know, maybe historically I'd have been like, no, I need to get like a Devon Achane over Saquon because he's so much more, you know, explosive. The offensive situations are just night and day between these, and as we've talked about, like simplifying things, get the guy on the team who's actually going to have a pulse down the stretch and not someone who needs to break 30-yard rushing touchdowns or 50-yard, you know, receiving touchdowns in order to you know, find the end zone. So I would go Saquon over a lot of those names in the start of the second round.
What's your best case 1-2 turn? Is it Lamb Barkley?
Best case 1-2 turn is probably Lamb Barkley, or I still like Genty. I think that team could be a little bit more lively than being I think they're a bottom 5 team over the last 10 years in points per game last year.
Do you know that the anecdote from that supports that?
What's that?
The offensive coordinator last year, for at least a period of time, in name only, was Pete Carroll's son. And the rumor was that he didn't know what he was doing and that they had to have shadow meetings. So he would come in and do the meeting and then he would leave and then they would do the real meeting. Like it was like the Truman Show. Like it was like the Truman Show. We got to make sure the coach's son feels like he's part of the team and he's doing a good job. And so that they had to like basically undo everything that he was doing and redo it, which is part of the reason why the offensive line was so incompetent. It was so dysfunctional. So yes, it's not a good offensive line, but it was compounded by like the equivalent of Matt Patricia at offensive coordinator. Like sometimes there's just a coach can negatively impact a team easily where it takes real skill to help them in a positive way.
Yeah. So, you know, I have to make that decision a lot, like Barkley or Genty around the turn. I've been about 50-50. I get a lot of them together still, even in a PPR format, but I'm really high on CeeDee Lamb. It just goes back to the offensive expectations. It's Dallas is in just a phenomenal spot week after week based on like implied team totals and game totals playing indoors. So yeah, ideal turn probably involves CeeDee Lamb, but Saquon Barkley's right up there in that conversation too.
CeeDee Lamb, number 12 in explosive plays last year, an explosive play rating, I should say, on PlayerProfiler.com. But you got to look at that injury history. You got to look back when the last My Dimension show we had was Deepak Chona. We talked about injuries and players that are coming back from injuries. And he reminded us about this high ankle sprain that CeeDee Lamb suffered last year. And that really suppressed his production. Not only missing games, but when he came back, he was not himself for 1 or more months. That's every high ankle sprain. That's how it works. So that yet another reason to be very bullish on CeeDee Lamb this year. I'm bullish on both him and Pickens. I mean, it's just these are the offenses. I'm not sorry that these are the offenses. It's a very boring approach. I'm not trying to talk myself into bad offenses, and I'm all in on the great offenses. And CeeDee Lamb is one of those guys. Unfortunately, Genti's not yet. And so for me, it's pretty clearly Barkley. But I also love a running back that could somehow earn an 80% opportunity share. Who doesn't love that? I mean, of course I love that. Of course. Like imagine Cam Scadaboo with an 80% opportunity share. Oh my God. Right. But now we're hearing that, okay, he's not. He's a co-starter with Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy's the starter in the 2-minute drill. And knowing that, I think you have to adjust. But we were way out in front, and I'm not gonna like dial it back very much. Like I want to make sure that his ADP is gonna fall a little bit, and we're gonna be in line with that. But I always want to be at least like say 10 spots ahead of consensus on Cam Scadaboo, because this is a team that has openly said we're a run first team, and he has an all-purpose skill set, and he won that job easily last year, very quickly, and was very productive. And now he's coming into his second year, and by all accounts, he's healthy. And they don't have a lot of weapons besides him and Malik Neighbors. And Malik Neighbors is coming off a torn ACL, which is a more difficult recovery period than what he suffered with his leg injury. So for that reason, I'm staying firm. I'm staying planted on Cam Scadaboo. But I also love Tyrone Tracy in best ball and in any format, really. Love a good handcuff that's an all-purpose, fast, explosive guy who wants to be in the 2-minute drill. Who doesn't like that? He's just not Scadaboo. But if you've decided that you're going to be in on the running game of the Giants, then it's fine.
Yeah, Scadaboo, like he pretty much put Tracy in the rear view after week 1 last year. Snap rate was 73% for Tracy in week 1, 11% for Scadaboo, and then it went 51-42% for Scadaboo in week 2, and then he basically was the lead back from weeks 2 through 7. I mean, Tracy missed some time, but like he was averaging almost 100 scrimmage yards. He had a target share of about 15%, which is phenomenal. If you take all of that and just say, if you kind of did like a blind test of what he was doing sort of as a featured back, you'd be like, yeah, this guy, I want to draft him, round 1, round 2. I'm not saying that that's going to be what happens. Like again, we can't copy and paste last year, especially in a smaller sample, but Scadaboo had a really, really, really good role when he was featured. And I like Tyrone Tracy. I've been there, but I think it's also telling that Scadaboo is kind of the more involved receiver, like pass catcher than Tracy, whose bread and butter should be that. So I like both. But like Scadaboo, and you mentioned about wanting to be about 10 spots higher than ADP. I mean, Scadaboo did see a surge in ADP after the reports that he was like kind of clearly the running back 1 in the offense. Now you can maybe say that the 2-minute drill stuff, sure. But that's valuable. It's just also it's just like it can be, it's going to be frustrating if he's not out there in the 2-minute drill, but you're not really paying that for like second round price on Scadaboo for, again, a role again, if you just look at like the numbers and how he was used, it's better than you would expect based on where his ADP is.
Yeah, if you like what we're doing, like the show, share it with a friend. We're at pretty much 500 concurrent viewers right now. We're at 490. Let's jack it up to 500. This is going very well. If you're listening to the podcast, share the podcast. Send it to, copy it to, put it in the text and be like, hey, friend that is in a fantasy league, maybe not with you, maybe with you, regardless. If you want to solve the tight end position in your fantasy draft, listen to this show. But we'll also get more info, not just tight, but the easy summary is that this is probably the best show you'll listen to all off season to figure out the tight end position. And then there's a lot of other bonus content here as well. Like, for example, at what point does this catastrophe that's playing out in the quarterback room in Atlanta, at what point does this affect Bijan?
Yeah. So one of my recent newsletters for the late round subscribers looked at bookmaker based win totals preseason and what the impact was for early round running backs, and it was kind of a Devon Achane study, like, just to be clear. But Bijan is affected by that because the Falcons win total not super high, 6.5 at DraftKings Sportsbooks, with minus 140 odds on the over. But I had trouble with Bijan being in this because it's like I think people are going to take that and be like, yeah, clearly this can't matter. But I went back to 2014 and looked at first round running backs drafted on a team with what I called an adjusted win total. I adjusted for 17 games basically for the pre-2021 seasons. And there were 6 in my database. So again, top 12 overall picks on bad offenses. Saquon Barkley, 2019, Christian McCaffrey, 2022, when he changed teams, David Johnson twice, 2018, 2019, LaShawn McCoy, 2017, and Ashton Genty last year. Only 2 of them. If you look at ADP, historically, you can scale that. You can scale ADP and say, if you're the first overall pick and you're a running back, you're projected to score X points just historically. So when you compare actual performance to that baseline, so it's going to slide down as you get later in the draft. When you compare those 6 backs to ADP expectation, only 2 of them, Barkley and McCaffrey, who were top 3 overall picks that year that were cited, only 2 of them outperformed ADP expectations to any degree. Barkley did so by 0.1 points, and McCaffrey changed teams. Barkley was on a 4-12 Giants team. He was like basically the top pick. And the Giants team win total was 6. If you look at later on, 7, 8, 9, 10, these back of the first half or back of the first round picks, those guys all basically failed to sort of live up to the hype. So Bijan's in that bucket technically, but he's also one of the top 3 pick. I mean, he's the top 2 pick. So like he kind of fits that. McCaffrey did it. Barkley was fine in 2019, but it's a bit of an uphill climb for him to like have a phenomenal season. And when you compare him to Jahmyr Gibbs, like some people, prefer Bijan to Gibbs. I don't. I think it's just such easy process to go Gibbs and say this guy's going to score more touchdowns because his offense is better.
Gibbs, oh my God.
Sportsbook props are crazy different for the touchdown odds. And I know Bijan's like a generational talent. So I'm not saying like, look, Barkley was able to do it. McCaffrey, kind of a caveat there. Like he can do it, but it's going back to simplifying things, looking at offensive expectations. And then, yeah, like I'm not a huge believer. I'm sure there probably aren't too many in Tua or Michael Penix at this point. And what's interesting is like this team has 3 really sort of high profile fantasy assets in Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Like Kyle Pitts is one of those borderline like tier, I guess you'd call it a tier 3 tight end, just like to simplify it, outside the top 5, but one of those guys who like people think could make the jump or is right there. And it's like, I don't know how you're excited about this offense. Tommy Rees calling plays. He did that last year in the back half of the season with the Browns. The results weren't great. They were bottom 3 in EPA per play from week 10 onward, slightly worse than they were in the first half of the season. Their pass rate over expectation fell. It was already low at minus 3.6%, went down to minus 4.2%. So, like, I get it. Like, Bijan's going to have phenomenal market shares. It's just the odds that he is like the home run. You had to have this guy. He was the, by far the RB1 best player in fantasy. He's got to overperform. I mean, either the Falcons have to overperform drastically their offensive expectations, which are pretty low, all things considered, or he's just got to like do it himself. And give me Gibbs. I wish McCaffrey were like healthier. But like if you guaranteed me like 15, 16 games for McCaffrey, it's like he's gonna be a better pick than Bijan probably. So I'm worried about this offense in terms of getting maximum value out of all three of those guys. So it's a little bit it's a better situation than the Cardinals. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like out on Bijan. I'm still taking him second overall more often than not. I'm considering like a Ja'Marr Chase or a Puka, but
I'm considering Puka.
I think the gap between Gibbs and Bijan is very large. And I actually pulled DraftKings Sportsbook odds, props. If you look at the full stat line, there aren't a ton of running backs who have full stat lines, but three of them do: Gibbs, Bijan, and McCaffrey. And people, like, you can have issues with using sportsbook props to project fantasy. It's sort of a median outcome. I get it, but based on those, the gap is closer between Bijan and McCaffrey than from Gibbs to Bijan. So, like, to me, Gibbs is the clear best pick in fantasy football right now at 101 by a mile. And then you put that into context with Bijan, it's like, he would be my 102 more often than not, but I don't feel as good as I want to based on everything I've looked at.
It's interesting. We've had years where there was talk about the unfairness of the 101. I don't hear that this year. There should be. The advantage you have of getting the 101 in your fantasy draft and getting Jahmyr Gibbs is gigantic. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the median projection. You're going to say, well, the projections are similar. Well, yeah, sure. But the best case outcome for Gibbs is 30 fantasy points a game. Bijan can't sniff that. Right? Bijan's going to get there on volume, and it's perfectly fine. And that's how that sausage is made. He's going to get more touches than Jahmyr Gibbs. But if Gibbs has the ceiling to break fantasy, and Bijan simply doesn't have that, and that has nothing to do with baseline projections. Just like the player's talent in the context of their team, and it's very rare. Even the years when Christian McCaffrey was putting up close to 30 points per game, or even LaDainian Tomlinson, he wasn't in this kind of perfect position where you had the vacated touches of David Montgomery. You've got the degradation of the defense in Detroit. You've got the offensive line. You've got the stability of all the offensive pieces from year to year. The only piece that's missing is the one piece that you would want to remove if you were Jahmyr Gibbs. Think about it.
Yeah, like if you look at, again, just to go back to sportsbook numbers, just an easy baseline. It's out there for everybody. And actual projected points, there's not a lot of that out there. Like projected fantasy points, yes, but like projected points per game, you don't really get a lot of those sources. But if you take Detroit's implied team total, they're going to be the second best offense in football. They're a half point per game behind the Rams. But if you look at like their individual games, they're actually potentially a little bit better or equal to the Rams. They have 10 games on the slate with a total of 48.5 points or greater. They've got 11 games where their implied team total, like, so their offensive expectations to score about 26 points. They've got 11 of those, and we know they play indoors. It like everything just says process wise, Gibbs is the 101. And what you mentioned about like kind of the cheat code, I think what also goes along with having the 101 is that two guys are going to fall because it sort of flattens out after like the top 5 and then maybe again after like the top 14 or so, depending on if like how strong your takes are on like these sort of the second tier toward the
I see
end
where you're
of the
going
first
with
round.
this.
Like then it's a huge flat tier and you're going to get 2 more of those guys who have enough upside to outperform the guys you're getting 12th and 13th. So that is, I think Gibbs himself is phenomenal, but I've had enough drafts that I've done and yeah, they're best ball, but it's not like it's such a, different format. You feel so good with who's there at, 212 and 301 that you feel like you're off to a great start. Like you have to kind of screw it up and pick, like reach for players or, do something that you don't feel good about because there's going to be guys there that you can feel good with. So that to me, in addition to Gibbs himself being set up for success, you have such a good 2-3 turn available to you this year that you don't always have historically.
You get Brock Bowers there.
If Bowers slides, then you could be looking at,
it's conceivable.
Yeah, then you could have a running back who is sort of Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
A tight end who's like a Travis Kelce, and then from there,
it's unfair.
So,
the things you could do are unfair. You're doing your best on the other side. If you're at the 1-2 turn,
yeah,
Lamb Barkley's as good as you can do, and to compete, and you're going to compete with those guys, sure, but you're going to be at a disadvantage, just the way fantasy works. Yes. And by the way, got the Jahmyr Gibbs profile up there from the world famous draft kit on Player Profiler. Subscribe to it, and you can see in the top right, analyst cheat sheet. My personal cheat sheet is up there now for you to download for your drafts. So, I love talking star player. Let's do this. So we talk about Gibbs, and Bijan, which I've never spent this much time talking about them, and I love it so much. I feel so good. It's like, it's mid-August. We're allowed to do it. But we should talk about this Jaguars backfield. I'm in on the Jaguars passing game more than the backfield. Tootin and Rodriguez are co-starters. Just want to put that out there to you.
Yeah. I think that Bashal Tootin is a really interesting prospect with some potential, but this is where the coaching comes into play. If he's not going to be a featured back, we have to listen to that, and you can't just assume that he's going to play 85% of the snaps, and you can't assume that he's going to have a great, goal line role if that's not what's going to happen. And if that's the case, he looks maybe more like, the Travis Etienne role from last year, like a 60-65% snap rate guy, decent target share, like maybe 10%, which is where Etienne was last year. But like an iffy red zone role. And not only an iffy red zone role in terms of rushing, because you can look at rushing red zone share, but you also have to look at the overall red zone share, the opportunity share, because they have guys that they can throw the ball to. Talked about Brenton Strange. Maybe they get Tanner Koziol some goal line looks just because he's...
stop it. Don't.
I know. I don't think they'll do it.
I have some orphans in tight end premium where I have nothing, where I'm actually going to have to roll out Koziol.
Like maybe that's how it goes. But I think that the ceiling is being capped already for Bashal Tootin, and that's a bit unfortunate. I do think that
jet sweep to Travis Hunter.
Yeah, and they should do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But from a redraft standpoint, if Bashal Tootin's my RB2 because I went, super receiver heavy early on, it's fine. In best ball, I'm just taking more Chris Rodriguez.
Wait, it's fine. It's fine. Can we just let's just hear what is what you really meant. That's what you meant. It's fine.
Fine. So Chris Rodriguez in best ball, I feel like is an easier value just because he goes so much later. But I think that the chance for Bashal Tootin to be just like a game changer, it doesn't seem in the cards right now. So where are you with these guys?
I prefer, if I'm going to be speculating, this is a speculative play, very speculative, because I'm going David Montgomery every time. Okay, so just put that off to the side.
Yeah.
If I didn't have David Montgomery available to me in that zone of drafts, and typically do, right? Typically you do. And I had to take a running back and had to maximize upside, I'm going Jadarian Price. Jadarian Price, I'm going to go with what's in the box. He's a little bit more what's in the box, where we kind of know what Tootin is at this point. You have really no idea what you're getting in Jadarian Price because we didn't see enough of him in college, but they certainly saw enough of him to draft him in the first round as opposed to the fourth round. And we've got some answers already that he is a quality pass catcher from what we've seen in camp and all the reports from camp. That's what I've been looking for. Is he catching passes? And sure enough, he is catching passes, some spectacular catches, actually, which is what you love to see. We know he's like Tevin Coleman between the tackles in a good way, but is he a better receiver than Tevin Coleman? The answer is absolutely yes. And that's a team that wants to run the ball. That's a team that wants to basically just beat their opponent into submission. And they drafted Jadarian Price to be the featured guy. You don't draft a running back at the end of the first round to not be the featured guy. Even Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted to be the featured guy. He wasn't good enough, but we also had plenty of chances to see what Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in college. And he was basically a volume check down catcher for Joe Burrow and somehow tricked everybody. Jadarian Price wasn't playing with Joe Burrow. Jadarian Price wasn't playing, and he wasn't playing for the best possible reason, that he was behind an elite player. And the interesting thing is both Ashton Genty's backup and Jeremiah Love's backup are the 1-2 in Seattle. How funny is that? The college backups have found a second life with the world champions. Helani has been named the starter, and I agree with it. Please, by all means, let him be the starter. They're the Super Bowl champs. You might say, well, you just complained earlier that coaches aren't optimizing their talent and they're punishing players based on irrational preferences. No, I agree. If you're going to have a big part of what Seattle did last year was their culture. And if they want to reward George Helani for being, sort of the quintessential Seahawk and make him the starter week 1 and make the rookie running back earn it to be the starter week 2, who fucking cares? They're going to win the game. Why do you care? Well, it's the Patriots. Hold on. My daughter just got so mad. Sorry. I didn't mean it. They're playing the Patriots week 1. That's very much up in the air. One game from a running back doesn't matter in terms of coaching decisions, who you're starting, and they're going to play Jadarian Price plenty in week 1 anyway. So I think Helani is very interesting. He has an all-purpose skill set, and he's technically the starter. It's the least expensive named starter on a Super Bowl champion run first team in the history of fantasy football. Which is true. I understand is a very specific award to give a player or achievement. But for me, like, I'll just draft them both. I mean, I'm not handcuffing. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But in Dynasty, I have teams with both. And certainly it's similar to what we talked about earlier with the Giants. Hey, if I get Scattaboo, fantastic. If I end up with Tracy, good. If I end up with Jerry and Price, probably not. It's pretty expensive, but it's nice to have him. But I like to also get some Helani. The way the season can break, where Zach Charbonnet is coming back and then he pulls a hamstring, you've only seen that every time, right? And then Jadarian Price fumbles, maybe multiple times. And see, a team like Seattle, they can't have that because you've got all these guys rowing together. And if the rookie is going to fumble it away and all the work they did to get the team in position to win, and then the rookie fumbles it away, That's not gonna do. I think Tootin would have a much longer leash if he fumbles than Jadarian Price would. I mean, so there's scenarios where Holani is quite valuable.
Yeah, and like there were interesting quotes last year where they were talking about their running back room, and like George Holani was always thrown into like, hey, we like our running back room with, Walker, Charbonnet, Holani. It's like, really, like, it doesn't seem like you guys love George Holani, but he always seemed to be brought up, and it was
Team
interesting.
Captain. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so yeah, but I think most running backs can have a pulse in the right environment, whether they are elite talents or not. It's kind of how the running back position can work. So I have a lot of Holani already. Price, there, it's like an upside bet. I don't know how much I'm going to get there in season long. It feels like it could be a hard one to get right week to week, especially if Zach Charbonnet, who has some pretty positive buzz about when he can return, and they clearly like him enough. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a, do you think there's too many mouths to feed here for you to feel great with in week one to know who to play? Or are you just like, I'm going to play Holani and hope that he's the guy in redraft?
Or I'm Dynasty? Playing Holani in week one. Yeah, I'm definitely playing. Okay, I'm just letting everybody know he's in my lineup. Like I just looked at the lineup, I saw Holani in it. I was just on a random team, and Holani's in the starting lineup. I'm playing Holani this year, guys. Last time I checked, Kenneth Walker won the Super Bowl MVP when he played the Patriots. So I'm not saying he's Kenneth Walker, but he is the starting running back. Like, and there's only so much that the talent profile can do. The running back is much more situational, much more team dependent, much more supporting cast dependent than other positions, which is, again, this is the tale as old as time. This is the whole case for zero RB. We don't need to get into that today. We're far enough along talking about late round quarterback theory. We don't need to go there. But I will get you out of here. I've kept you way too long. Thank you for being so generous.
Oh, of course.
This has been unbelievable. I really enjoyed this. Most of the things we agree on, we did not talk about. We did. I'll admit, we talked about Nico and we talked about Trey McBride. That was it. A lot of these other guys, we did not talk about this. I was like, oh, okay. We're on the same page with that. We didn't talk about Tootin. We didn't talk about him. Okay. So there's some young player. We need to talk about rookies getting hype. We got to talk about that. How can we do a podcast without? We can't talk about it. Got to talk about it. We can't just talk about. You guys talked about Gibbs and Bijan, and you didn't mention Cyrus Allen,
right?
Or
these guys even know ball? They don't know Cyrus Allen.
You guys are not what I thought. Yeah. This is late round in player profiler. Come on. Okay, so we got 3 rookies getting massive camp hype, truly massive. Jacoby Lane, Caleb Douglas, and of course Cyrus Allen. Which of those, if you had to pick one, who you think is for real?
Who do I think is for real? Are we talking?
I know that's a very cliche podcast statement. Who do you think is the most worthy of being drafted in all formats? If you have one over the other in best ball, that would be interesting. But just, I can tell you, we are way out ahead on Cyrus Allen.
Mm-hmm.
We are at market on Caleb Douglas, and we're not there yet on Jacoby Lane. Let me tell you where we are.
I mean, then for me, if that's the question, it's going to be Cyrus Allen. So when we talk about coaching, like Rashee Rice is a great fantasy receiver, largely due to coaching, because they just want to get him the ball. Like, we can talk about his talent or whatever, but like clearly they want to feature him when he's on the field and healthy. Cyrus Allen, to me, of the 3, has the path to being the top receiving option. Like, Rice doesn't look great. I'm not a huge watch a 10-second clip and make a declarative statement on like, this guy's not healthy or whatever. Like I like
Malik
Xavier
Neighbors
Worthy.
looks better than Rice does right now.
Yes, that's very true. Like I think Xavier Worthy's fine, but they've never made him a big target earner. Like he just hasn't been there. Travis Kelce's getting older. So like of the three, I mean, I guess technically Caleb Douglas has an quote unquote easier time of being the top pass catcher just because there's nobody else there who really has a firm grasp.
You notice
on
the
it.
two receivers that we're not high on are on teams with rushing quarterbacks.
Yeah. But for me, like Cyrus Allen has a path to being like the sort of first or second receiving option in on a team that I know the Chiefs have fallen off, but like the offensive expectations for the Chiefs way better than for the Dolphins. What is even if Caleb Douglas is the guy for the Dolphins, what does that really look like? Is it one of these situations where the top target earner on this team is at 18% target share because there's 5 or 6 guys just on a per game basis at like 12 to 8 to 18%. Some like we see that sometimes whenever teams don't have phenomenal go-to options. That's a possibility. Being the top option for a team doesn't necessarily mean you're a phenomenal asset. Cyrus Allen, at least with the buzz here, feels like he could be scripted a role. And this is, again, it kind of comes full circle here with the coaching. Like, was Cyrus Allen a first-round pick? No. Do I believe that this coaching staff could turn him into something more than he is based on how they use him? Yes. Now, I like Jacoby Lane. I think there's a chance, just to talk about him real quick, I think there's a chance that, look, Zay Flowers is the top target getter, but not the top red zone guy. I mean, Zay had like an okay red zone share historically, but it was similar to like Rashad Bateman's last year. And even though Zay had like a 29% target share and Bateman was like 11%, they had similar red zone usage and even money targets. So like whenever you're actually inside the 10 or in the end zone when you're targeted, kind of similar numbers there. There's a chance that Jacoby Lane, who has sort of a bit of a touchdown scorer profile, at least for 1 year in college, maybe he's like the red zone threat for a team that, with an offense that we like. So I think there's an easier path for Caleb Douglas than Jacoby Lane to get targets. But if I'm picking them, if I'm ranking them, it's still going to be Allen, Lane, Douglas, just because I think that if Lane is the wide receiver 2 for a great offense, that probably still means more than Caleb Douglas being the wide receiver 1 for Miami.
Well, Miami could easily finish last in pass attempts this year.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. I mean, there's just the pie is much smaller. It's not like it's not like Baltimore's going to throw the ball around the yard either, but at least that offense is going to be functional and going to be in the red zone more.
Yeah.
Where what are you really gaining? Caleb Douglas, to me, he's a great dynasty guy where he could ascend this year and be the de facto number 1, that he's competing for the number 1 job with a rookie next year. It could be could be a second round rookie, could be a very good rookie, but still he's going to be in a great position next year.
Yeah.
He's great. He's a 2027 play, but as long as it's Malik Willis, I like Malik Willis and I like A-Chain, right? Like if there's one running back who's on a bad team that you can tell a story about, it's the efficiency that A-Chain brings to the table. I mean, it's next level. So I'm perfectly fine taking the guy that's just going to get all the targets out of the backfield, break big plays. That's the offense. What are they going to do? It's going to be Willis, A-Chain, and then a little bit of Dulcich and a little bit of Malik Washington, and then Caleb Douglas will be in there, and Caleb Douglas is going to have some plays. Listen, he's going to be a waiver wire guy 1 week. Yeah. Week 4, something, Caleb Douglas is going to be on top of waiver wire. You know it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to fucking draft him.
And it's going to be after a breakout game. And I've looked at this historically too. It's like, you pick him up after his big game and like, doesn't always lead to more. So then you miss the big game. And then you can look back.
No, and the worst thing that happens, the worst is when you pick him up instead of a running back, and that running back ends up being a pretty regular producer. Like he ends up there was an injury, and then the running back, he was questionable, that he was behind. And then let's say it's Taj Brooks and Chase Brown, heaven forbid, has some lower body injury, but when waivers run, we're not sure how serious it is. But Caleb Douglas, man, he had 110 yards and a touchdown. You stack rank Caleb Douglas ahead of Taj Brooks. Yeah. And then Sunday rolls around, you're like,
Yep. Yeah. It's waiver wire receivers are, I mean, honestly too, waiver wire running backs can be a bit overstated because we're often picking them up after they have breakout games. It's different if there's a clear injury, but like chasing these waiver wire receivers historically, very difficult. And it feels like I kind of had like 110-1 on like 6 targets in my brain for like Caleb Douglas. It's like, hey man, he's like the only receiver who did something this past week who's on waivers. I need a receiver. I'm going to pick him up. You never start him. Maybe you drop someone like you mentioned picking him up instead of a running back. Maybe you drop a running back who's not seen a lot of time just to make space for him. Like
that's in some ways that's even worse.
It is worse because
let's say oh God, who would be? I'm trying to think of a guy where I have him on my team and I have him in a lot of places, and he's not as involved as I thought he was going to be at running back. Or it's just straight up handcuff. Like it could just be like a Tank Bigsby. It could just be a Tank Bigsby, a Tyrone Tracy, and I was thinking
Tracy because we talked about him. Yeah,
and you're letting him go because you're like, listen, it's all about Scadaboo. The next thing you know, Scadaboo picks up an injury. You're like, no, oh, but I have Caleb Douglas. Oh, what have I done?
Yeah, it feels like each of the Dolphins receivers is going to go through that at some point this year.
Yes, what have I done? All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. These 3 receivers are, struggling. I mean, they are in the ice chest right now. Jahmyr Bernard, a name I just can't quite deal with. I've had 3 or 4 tweets about his name being Jeremy, and none of them have been funny, and so I've just deleted them before I posted them. But it's just such a dumb name. Who names? I mean, this parents should be ashamed of themselves. Jeremy? Do you know what a germ is? Like, what are you even doing to this kid? Jahmyr Bernard, Omar Cooper Jr. That's a cool name.
That's cool.
So. Yeah, you got. I mean, you got the battle of the names here. Omar Cooper Jr., Jahmyr Bernard. Even the way your lips move to say that name is so mealy mouthed, like Jahmyr Bernard, and then Elijah Sarat, right?
That's a good name too.
Those are both great names. So his name just mixed with their names, it's unfortunate. He's such a beta, and now he's even Roman Wilson's beta. So I don't know what's happening with these guys, but Surratt's dead because he's on the Ravens. Zay Flowers has signed an extension and is really good, and Jacoby Lane is off to the races. Yeah. So it's possible that Elijah Surratt's dead. I don't want to. I know I'm poisoning the well. I haven't even asked the question yet, and I'm already giving you the answer. So I apologize for that. It's classic host mistake, just a egomaniacal host behavior. So we have Jahmyr Bernard, Omar Cooper Jr., Elijah Surratt. Which of these guys do you think is sort of the most likely to make an impact this year?
If I had to answer it that way, I would say Omar Cooper Jr. due to the draft capital, and the fact that the team could be better than we think in terms of the baseline. I'm with you there. Like I think I
like this analysis.
But it's not that I don't think the Ravens are going to be good. It's that Surratt is clearly like the other rookie receiver on the team at this point. Like he's not Jacoby Lane, so he's got to overcome that. Rashad Bateman still there. Like Mark Andrews still has a pulse, but it's all about Zay Flowers at the top.
Did you see the news on Jacoby Lane, by the way, that dropped on Player Profile? Did you see this?
I have not.
Look at this. Look at this news. This is with a straight face. With a straight face, they're saying Jacoby Lane is having the best camp in the history of the Ravens franchise.
That's quite the statement.
That's a statement. I've never heard
Yeah.
a statement like that. That's some true hyperbole. That also makes me think he's probably pretty good.
and like I said, there's a chance like he's a red zone kind of receiver. He might not have some of the big plays that we would want from any given receiver, but like if Zay's your wide receiver 1 and he's never really been a huge touchdown guy, there's no reason that, Jacoby Lane can't be very relevant because he's kind of getting the red zone and the end zone looks. So I think that's relevant. That's why.
Can we just stop there? This says so much about these 3 receivers that we talked about them for 30 seconds and pivoted back to Jacoby Lane.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But like when Aaron Rodgers comes out and says that Jeremy Bernard needs to like learn the offense, quote, inside and out, that probably to me is like he doesn't know the offense well enough. Maybe it's like, look, man, we're gonna lean on him and he needs to know this offense inside and out. It's not really how I took it. It doesn't seem like that's the case. So if there's one quarterback, we talk about coaching and the impact. If there's a quarterback who I'm like, if he doesn't trust this guy, even if he's running routes, he's just getting iced out. Like it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. So that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for me with Bernard. But I do think, again, to go back and answer your question, Omar Cooper Jr. at least has a path to look. They invested capital in him, 30th overall. I like A.D. Mitchell. I think he's been a catchable target regression candidate for years now. I think he's better than perception probably just because he hasn't had a lot of catchable, but it could also be his archetype. So I at least think that Omar Cooper has, if I'm betting on one of them this year, it's easily Cooper. But yeah, I thought Surratt could go earlier in the draft. He didn't. He's got a lot of ground to make up. And this offense I know it's a different looking offense, different coordinator and everything, but they've never really supported multiple, pass catchers. And yeah, A.D. Mitchell, as you have here pulled up, like
he's good.
It's a profile you can at least bet on.
He's good. He's good. And they have him playing the role he was born to play. And he's ready to play that role, and he's going to play it at a high level. This is, again, very bullish on the Jets. I'm glad that you're coming around on the Jets. Did you notice the one thing that the 2 of those receivers had in common on that list, by the way? Why they were overrated?
What's that?
They benefited greatly from the throwing of one Fernando Mendoza. Okay. This is one of the great tricks that gets played. And you saw with Omar Cooper, even scouts will fall for it. They will fall for it. These guys that put up in huge numbers, they just can't square the circle, and they just push the button on him. They're like, he can't be bad.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers. And it's like, dude, I think this may say a little bit more about the starting quarterback, soon to be starting quarterback in Las Vegas. When I saw Surratt getting buried and Omar Cooper getting buried, the first neuron to fire in my head is, Fernando Mendoza must be good. That's exactly where my head went.
Yeah, there's a very good chance he's very good.
Very good.
And that's I mentioned like the Carson back week 14 thing. I don't really know how long it's going to take for Mendoza to start. Doesn't seem like Kirk Cousins is going to be there for a while in the starting role. Could even be week 1. Who knows? But
dude, that would be so cool.
It would be sick because, again, like this team was so bad last year in terms of just their overall offense that they can only go up from there. And if Mendoza, rookie quarterbacks themselves historically don't do a ton to elevate the offense. But if Mendoza's great, it really only matters for 2 guys. And so it's like, can these 2 guys be good with Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers? Like the receivers, I think Mendoza would have to be sort of generational, like all-time rookie season to sort of get anything out of the receivers because there's not a lot of positive buzz from the receiver room. I like Michael Mayer just fine, but I don't think he's going to turn into like, hey, this team has 2 startable tight ends in fantasy, one of whom is like an alpha sort of tight end. So it's like, can he bring enough to the table for Genty and Bowers to pay off like their high end draft capital? And let's like you said, yeah, maybe there are clues here that he is. It's just going to depend on the coaching, and do they try to slow play him? And we get Kirk Cousins just going out there and they're scoring 13 points a game. Maybe that's the case, and we can't control that. That is a little bit of a risk, but I don't know if it's going to take forever for Mendoza to start. And if he starts early, yeah, you could say whatever about the development, but for us, for 2026, I think that would be very, very helpful.
Drafting Omar Cooper over Sadiq in Dynasty, these rookie drafts, I see it all the time, and it's a mistake. Every time I see it, I'm like, why? You picked the wrong jet. Don't do it. All right, man, I get you out of here. Thanks again. Where do people find you on social media?
I am at Gadula13, GDULA13, and you can find everything I do at lateround.com. Check out the Late Round Draft Guides. It's updated every Friday. JJ's dropping fresh rankings and everything. But yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, buddy. Give us a bold prediction.
Bold prediction. So I was on like the George Pickens outscores CeeDee Lamb train for a bit. I still think that's viable, but I'll make one a little more tight end centric because we talked so much about tight ends. Yeah. And I can go as bold as I want here, but I'm going to say not only is Colston Loveland this year's tight end 1, I'm going to say he averages at least 18 PPR points per game, giving us like a Travis Kelce or Trey McBride kind of season where he's like a real game changer. This offense wants to be historic. Colston Loveland is a historic tight end prospect. And I love Luther Burden. I think Rome Odunze is better than people give him credit for, but there's no reason he can't be the top pass catcher in this offense and have just a historic tight end season.
You know, it's important to me that all of our media be free, but it is you, the premium subscriber, with access to data analysis, the rankings, Dynasty Deluxe, DFS Dominator, the world-famous draft kit. You get that content and you make all of this possible. The free podcasts, articles, NFL draft content. So I must give a special thanks to all of our premium subscribers. You make all of this possible.